So we had a big answer this week. How was Christina becoming William, and was William a real person? What was going on with him? How was Ruby becoming the woman we saw from episode 2? It was answered. They were dead, William and that woman, and Christina was using their blood and a spell that William had developed to do the whole transformation thing.
The polyjuice potion.
Yeah, basically. So they went ahead and just said it, knocked it out. But she claims that everything she had said as William was true as far as William's backstory. He was killed. He was trying to help her with the lodge and all that stuff. And I guess she, to some degree, has feelings for Ruby based on what it appears what she was saying. What did y'all think about that? And do you agree that that's what she was implying when she was talking to Ruby?
Well, yeah, she said she meant all the words that she said, that, everything that she told her was true. So, yeah, I guess she has feelings for her, and I think that's heavily implied. The way her spell worked, well, and I'll say that too. Yeah, William was working on the spell, but she says she herself completed it. And it's pretty fucking crazy that she's got to keep the entire corpse for it to work. Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense because magic never seems cut and dry in their universe. Like what her dad had to. Well, I don't know if he had to do that ceremony with the liver. I think that may have just been like one of their traditions, but it seems like it takes a lot of effort or great cost. So I guess it makes sense, but you couldn't be too many people, otherwise you'd have to have a house full of corpses.
I agree with you on that part. The dead bodies, the spells, and all that stuff. It to me felt like a like an R-rated version of Harry Potter. It was kind of crazy,
right?
But as far as saying that she like had feelings for her and all this stuff, and this is, I mean, the love at first sight stuff. There's lust at first sight, and feelings at first sight. But for her to for her to fall in love with Ruby, there's no indication that she even knew Ruby prior to, when they met at that bar. So for her to say, I've felt all those things, that's bullshit. I feel like that's a manipulation tool. I'm not sure why yet.
She could be bullshitting her. Absolutely. But I was just saying that she was trying to relay to her that she did care about her.
Oh no.
Well, I'll say this much. It's probably about as real for her as it would have been for William over the period of time that she's known William. It's about that believable. Because, she still spent that time with her. All those things still happened.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't get a whole lot more of Christina in this episode, but I think we still had her influence, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Spencer and Larry, and we are talking about Lovecraft Country, episode 7, titled I Am. This was Hippolyta's episode. For the most part, each episode seems to have a central character in a story. This was clearly hers. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. There's 3 episodes left? Yeah, 8, 9, 10. We're doing Raised by Wolves. The season finale is coming up. There will be a second season. We're doing The Boys review. The review went up earlier today, and a lot of other content coming your way. So hit that thumbs up, sub if you haven't, and please leave a comment. Tell us what you think about our conversation, and if we get anything wrong or you have a different opinion, go ahead and let us know. This was the trippiest episode of the 7, in my opinion. Last episode had some crazy stuff, but this one, you essentially had the first 30 minutes was sort of the standard Lovecraft Country episode, and the last 30 minutes was a very trippy ride through space and time, as they say, or other dimensions.
Without spoiling any of the space and time part just yet, that suit reminded me of Pluto Nash so much.
Damn.
I couldn't stop fucking laughing.
I hadn't even thought of that movie. Holy shit.
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Fucking Pluto Nat. That's a movie we should review. That's one of the biggest box office failures ever. Forget what the budget was, but it made like literally nothing. I remember reading about it in an article or something. Maybe we'll do a review if y'all want us to do a Pluto Nash review. I'd have to. It's been a while since I've seen it, but maybe we will. But yeah, trippy episode. I was checking the ratings for the show, trying to see where it's sitting because I haven't really heard a whole lot. I know last week I noticed it really wasn't trending in the top 10 on Twitter. This week it is. It's trending right now. It's, I believe, in the top 5 or close to it. I know the ratings were decent the first week. They were really strong the second week, and then it started dipping down. I think it went back up slightly around episode 5, but then I think it went back down for 6. So the ratings aren't doing the greatest as far as I can tell. Do you think, and I'm go ahead and say I enjoyed this episode, and I love that HBO is willing to let creators create. But do you think the show sometimes is a little too crazy for most audiences, or do you think that doesn't matter? And, I guess as far as HBO is concerned, it doesn't. They're going to keep doing this. But do you think it could affect a season 2? That's what I'm trying to say, basically. Especially if the ratings don't get better, or if it's not getting streamed a lot on HBO Max.
I think that just like we talked about before, all the decisions made on stuff like this, because it's a weekly episode thing, the way people, even when they what was it, review bombed The Boys because they didn't release it all at once. A lot of people, I think, especially with a show like this, will wait till it's all done, and then they'll, burn through it. And then I think, depending on how many people do that, will affect its ratings. Because right now, I'm enjoying the ride. I enjoy it, but just like Stranger Things is a weird ass show set in the 80s, and it's got a similar kind of vibe to it where it's just kind of weird. A lot of stuff's going on. Although this is more like Goonies meets like a very weird pulpy movie, as Goonies was more, or Stranger Things is more like just straight up Goonies.
Yeah, Lovecraft
So,
Country is the pulpiest thing I've ever seen in modern, as far as modern entertainment is concerned.
but I think that that's not going to hurt it, them doing that.
Yeah,
But
I love it. I'm just, yeah, I personally love it. I'm just, curious about
I think that it will. I
mainstream.
think the big test will be once it's done, seeing how many people burn through it at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically my opinion. I think when the season's done, it's gonna get more ratings. I mean, well, more people will start to watch the season, and start and binge it, because it's hard to say. Streaming is weird. It's weird. It's especially with HBO, because you are used to getting, weekly series with HBO, but with streaming in general and the direction it's gone, people are often used to binging things all at once. And there may be a lot of people, given the ground that this show covers, who are waiting to see, well, how is the season resolved? And I know more than a couple of people who are watching the show, who did watch the first couple episodes, but are more than a little behind and just kind of waiting for it to finish.
Well, my
You know
parents,
some people like that? Is it what you
Oh,
said?
yeah, definitely.
Okay. And I think that could be what's happening. I think I'll give you an example real quick. Sorry to interrupt you, Spencer. Tonight's episode, there's a lot on TV. There's a wrestling pay-per-view tonight, and there's various sporting things going on. I might have skipped this episode and watched it later in the week had we not done reviews for it, and watched the pay-per-view instead. So you know what I mean? So there's more going on, so I could see that definitely possibly affecting the ratings.
I was just saying, like, my parents waited for that show Hell on Wheels or whatever to finish because they kept hearing good things about it, but they wanted to just power through it. So they waited for it to finish up, and then they powered through the whole thing. So I think people waiting to binge it is a very real possibility. But like you said, there's a pay-per-view tonight. An NBA Finals game was on tonight, or not finals, conference finals, I guess. The Heat ended up beating the Celtics. So like, there's that, and then there's Sunday Night Football's on now. So there's a lot of other things where I think a lot of people probably won't even watch it until either tomorrow or Saturday of next week.
It's true.
Yeah, definitely. So getting back into the episode, we get a little bit with Montrose and Sammy. Real brief scene, basically showing how their relationship has worked. You know, every time they start to get close, Montrose pushes Sammy away, basically, and then Atticus walks in, sees the truth about his father. He has a little bit of a meltdown, and at first you're trying to figure out where's Atticus at in his head with this whole situation, and then you find out when he's talking to Letty that his anger seems to be, he was beaten as a child, and based on what I interpreted, and tell me if you guys agree or disagree, he feels that the beatings were more so not for him. He, like you said, he thought he did it because he loved me. He thought, now he seems to think, no, Montrose was beating me because Montrose couldn't deal with his own situation.
Yeah, that's what I got
and
from
was
it.
taking it out on Atticus, and that's where the anger and the frustration came from.
Yeah, 100%. He was projecting, like he was dealing with his own demons and couldn't deal with them. So every time his kid did something that was perceived as soft, he was, beating him because he didn't want him to be perceived that way, because he also didn't want himself to be perceived that way. It was a complete, just projecting his feelings and his anger onto his own kid.
Well, yeah, and also as he's mentioned Montrose has mentioned in previous episodes, that's what his father did to him. That's the whole cycle of violence thing we were talking about previously. He's just he's doing the same thing that his father did to him, and he may not even know how to parent any other way. I mean, as shitty a parent as Montrose is, but yeah, and it 100% is Montrose projecting his issues onto his son.
But I also think that perhaps if that's who Montrose was, what if he was kind of showing signs of that when he was a teenager or when he was younger? And his dad, especially shit, if it's the 50s and he's in his 50s now, so in the early 1900s, if he had any gay tendencies as a child at that time, I'm sure that his dad was whooping his ass trying to beat the gay out of him. And how fucked up is that? Like, it's, so as a young child, he's just getting beat for feeling a certain way. And so now, anytime he felt his son was doing anything soft, is what he called it, he just...
Well, yeah, and you're absolutely right, because we've seen earlier the extent to which Montrose goes to seemingly quote unquote protect his family and everything, and whereas he's sliced one of the characters' throats earlier, like so, and we see how jumpy he is about everything. Just over the meal with Sammy, he's comfortable at first. He's comfortable for once with himself, and we thought that's how he was going to be going forward in the series. But the minute that Sammy starts talking about his day and mentions someone he saw at the bus station and everything, he's like, "Oh, that could be my neighbor, Miss So and So." And he's like, "No, it was real far away from the apartment." And Montrose lives in a constant state of fear and paranoia.
Exactly.
And it seems to be, once again, like everything else Montrose is done in this series, he's going about it the wrong way, but it seems to just be that he doesn't want that sort of life for his son, whereas his son's always paranoid or looking over his shoulder.
I don't know about you, but the bacon and grits look pretty good to me.
Those look like pretty good bacon. That bacon was perfect.
Yeah, Sammy, whole, like, these grits are runny. I'd be like, fuck that. I want Sammy to make me some grits and bacon.
Every talking about Sammy, and I put a note on this. Every character seems to get an episode, but it's the characters that are part of the family. And Sammy is sort of in a relationship with Montrose. Do you think Sammy, if there is a season 2, becomes a bigger character and we get a little more about Sammy? Do you want to see more of him? He's only been here and there a few episodes, but he's been interesting, and I would like to know more about his history with Montrose. How far back does it go?
I think it would be super interesting. Like, I personally would like to see it just because to me, that would help dive deeper into Montrose's character. So
Yeah.
you could kind of almost have like a Montrose backstory and then have a Sammy story like tied into it. But I don't think that his story by itself is going to stand alone because
Yeah,
it doesn't drive the plot as much. It kind
especially
of
this season. I would
yeah.
agree.
But like you said, I would like it be just because I've liked Sammy's character. But to me, it would almost probably make me hate Montrose even more. So I don't know. It's like a double-edged
That's a
sword.
good point. Because you're gonna feel bad for Sammy because Montrose is so shitty to him. I'm so,
Yeah,
Larry.
but you might like Montrose more when you meet his dad. Is the thing,
That's true.
and
That's
that's
true.
what you get in the backstory. You might empathize with him a little more.
Uh, yeah, empathy, yes. Like you feel empathetic or sympathetic to you know, his plight, but how he's treating to me,
How he's
the
treating everybody, honestly.
yes, as time goes on, it's it's an explanation but not an excuse. Like
Yeah,
it's once you're a full grown up, you start, paying the consequences for your choices. So if you choose to be a giant piece of shit, that's still your choice. Knowing better or not, it becomes a choice. And that aggravates me when it's all they known. That is 1000% true. And now it's a little different because now there is mental help. It's not as, going to a psychiatrist isn't as frowned upon. It's not going to cost you your job type thing. So I also try to look at it as the 50s. It's a different time frame. So for him to be so scared and closeted when he already has to fight being black in the 50s, now he's got to fight being gay in the 50s too. So I can't
Exactly, and
imagine
that's where
going through
that
what he's
fear
yeah.
comes from. Yeah, with
So
his neighbors and all that kind of stuff.
so with those characters, I try to look at it as slightly different light as if it was filmed in 2020. Because as 2020, that being an excuse, I'd be like, fuck you. But, being the 50s, him growing up in the 20s, like there's a lot of shit that was way different. So I try to look at it with the different, lenses in and, be a little bit more understanding. But
well, yeah, because when you look at it like that, it's the sort of thing where it's like, of course he's afraid and paranoid. He doesn't want to lose the little bit of community that he has left. He doesn't really fit in most places, and at least he has some level of comfort, in his apartment or in that club that him and Sammy clearly frequent. So he's very scared to lose the few things that he has because of the period he lives in makes it very likely that that could happen. At least if any of his secrets got out, but he does. Montrose does go to some extremes, though.
Yes, yes, he does. Um, Letty and Ruby, they are together in several scenes. This episode, Atticus goes on his own adventure and he leaves Letty behind. By choice, she wants to sort of reconcile with her sister because they had a bit of a falling out several episodes ago. Two things I got from all of their scenes. One, Letty is pregnant, maybe, or something is going on. She even had a vision or a
shout
dream.
Cthulhu, baby.
And I don't know. We'll talk about it. And two, Ruby's a spy, in my opinion, and she's working with Christina. Your thoughts?
That's
Yes.
possible. I was thinking that too. That Ruby is a spy. But I'd also like to say the dream we see in the beginning. I think that dream was only possible because Letty's pregnant with Atticus's child.
Damn, that's a good theory. I didn't even
I
think
was
about
thinking
that.
the same thing because it like ties up the bloodline.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because she didn't
yeah,
she didn't have she didn't have those dreams before.
that is true.
Yeah,
Because
and
it
that
would be it's essentially the baby's um connection. Yeah, damn.
Right, and if you think back to that scene, unlike Atticus, she didn't catch fire feet first. The baby caught fire first.
yeah,
Okay.
like
Like you'll
started
have to
at
go
her
back and
stomach.
watch it, but her stomach caught on fire first, and than everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that the pregnancy thing is not a foregone certainty, but it certainly does seem that that's what's going on.
Seems pretty
Uh,
likely, yeah.
yeah. It's at this point, it's probably a pretty high probability, but I do think 100% that Ruby is spying on them, and it goes back to what I said about Christina, her manipulating her, and I think that that's what she's doing. The whole, everything I said, I meant it as me. It's to me, Christina is 1000% manipulating Ruby, and it's working. And I
Well, it
think that she is spying on him.
well, and hopefully over the next couple episodes we get some clarity on what it is that she said to her, because we cut away from that scene when Ruby tells her to tell her the truth. So we don't know whether she actually laid out her whole plan to Ruby and Ruby is literally on board, or whether there's some deceit involved.
Yeah.
Or hell, even if she mentioned, because I mean it seems clear that she mentioned something about Letty, because she's giving her a lot of side eye in this episode, like she knows something.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like you said, if she laid the whole plan out for her, even if Christina is manipulating her, she still might be on board with whatever the plan is. She might be like, you know what, you're right. So she could just be on board.
Right.
So Spencer was, I believe it was you. You were correct with the
Yes.
orrery. It in fact has a key. It is a essentially leads coordinates to a location in which you get access to this device. We'll talk about the device in a second and what happens, but Hippolyta solving that problem and her journey there. Also, she went to the mansion that was destroyed, found the comic book. Now she knows that George was in fact there. She's putting everything together. There's that scene, that frustrating ass scene where she's in the car and Woody and Atticus and Letty are trying to borrow it, and it's like if you guys would just talk to each other.
Yeah. It's
You
still at
know?
that point. Yeah, where it's like, will
The
y'all,
thing
will
that
y'all
we've
just have a
talked about the whole
conversation?
time.
You both have so much information about what's going on, but yeah, they won't talk. And also, I'll throw in the journey now for everybody. Essentially, as they're trying to get, including Christina, the book of names, because this not only has spells but how to use them. So yeah,
I hope when we get done with all this, everybody trying to keep secrets from each other and shit, whoever it is, Atticus, Letty, whoever's like, it's just like, you know what? The hell with it. Let's get everybody involved. Who knows something? Who else is giving who's looking at each other with narrow eyes here? Let's all just get in a room, settle it. Get Ruby, get Montrose in here. He needs to clear up a lot of stuff. What the hell? Bring Sammy in. I don't know
well,
if Sammy knows something. Bring him in for this meeting.
even Letty lying to Atticus about the dream, not telling him the
Yeah, she
full
didn't tell him
dream.
the part that she was pregnant in the dream, and
Pregnant.
yeah, and that the baby caught fire and everything. They're still keeping little secrets from each other. It's kind of a big mystery for them to be keeping these secrets from each other. And do you think they would have even caught up onto the fact that everybody has like a small piece of this puzzle? Well, maybe they
You would
might not know
think.
about Hippolyta, but I think a few episodes ago it was clear that the only real issue, the only real mystery, was a result of Montrose, Letty, and Atticus not talking to each other.
Yeah, I think that seems to be a theme. That it's, at the end of this episode, I think that they may start. Oh, shit. Dog was shaking. It sounded like a fucking bat got loose in here. But I think that at the end of this episode, it kind of made me feel as though they're finally going to start sharing some of the things with each other. Um, and the preview for next week kind of led me to believe that a little bit. But the ramifications of them being honest with one another, I think, is also not going to be necessarily their undoing, but it's going to cause some some feelings. It's going to fuck with them for a minute. Now, will they? I think just for the show to carry to season 2, they're going to have to get over some of that stuff. But it's going to there's going to be some revelations, I think, and it's going to cause some division in teams.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. So Hippolyta goes to the observatory and uses the key, activates a machine. Well, I love the design of it. It was really cool. Sort of that cool 30s/50s tech and mad
Yeah,
science.
it looked like an old school time machine.
Yeah, I love that kind of thing. So she activates it, and then two cops show up. I'm assuming from the lodge, and Atticus swoops in like a damn superhero. Man, did you see how first I didn't know it was him. I was like, "Who the fuck is that?" And I was like, "Oh shit, it's Atticus!" And so he's fighting them. A gateway opens from the machine. It tears like a hole in reality. He throws one of the cops through it. Hippolyta shoots and kills the other cop. And then Atticus and Hippolyta both get sucked through the gate. And then we get into the second half of the episode. It was almost exactly 30 minutes for each half. So the second half, I'm going to. There were 5 different sections of this half. I'm going to run through them. But first, before I do that, is there anything you want to say about that sequence?
Yeah,
Leading up.
only that. I mean, not that we'll talk about it more in depth when you talk about all the other things. But I did mention that when I win the lottery, I want to buy an observatory because that was badass. Like I want to be able to sit in a chair and spin around and look at shit through something like that. I mean, I don't specifically want like a 1940s observatory, but I I've always wanted to be an astronomer, but that's a lot of math. I'm not bad at math, but I don't know that I like math enough to do fucking calculus projections and trigonometry and shit. Like, I don't know that, but I am fascinated with space. So for this episode to revolve around a observatory, I thought was extra. I enjoyed it a lot more just because of that too.
Well, yeah, and that was very neat, and I thought it was an interesting way to play into her character's skill set because when we were looking at all the promotional stuff for this show before it came out, it's like, okay, she's an astronomer. How is that going to play into this show? I wonder. Well, I mean, I guess it is called Lovecraft Country, so who knows? It may have something to do with something Lovecraftian, was my thought. But this was a neat way. In fact, this episode, kind of played into that a lot. Also, I have a feeling that if you're looking for answers as to what may be an issue in season 2, or maybe I'm wrong, maybe it happens later in this season, the cop that was hurled into the time vortex.
I thought about that. Yes.
When Atticus threw that guy in there, I was like, oh, you made a mistake. That was a bad idea. Why would you, especially with all the sci-fi he reads? I can't believe he did that. He's a science fiction junkie, and he hurls a guy back in time.
He'll become some kind of, king of some crazy ass thing and come back.
Right? There's
RoboCop.
That's how King the Conqueror. Hey, well, Atticus is King the Conqueror. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, and I was going to mention that too about that whole scene with Atticus. I think Marvel cast him wrong. I think they cast him as Kang when they should have cast him as Black Panther. Like, did you see those roles?
Dude, I told you.
The judo and the rolls and stuff.
When he jumped in there, I was like, holy shit. I didn't know it was him. I was like, well, who the hell is that? Yeah, it was like a superhero. Exactly.
Well, I never remember Kang being that agile, is all I'm saying.
So, all right, I'm going to run through these 5, and then we can explore them however you guys want. When she enters this thing, okay, I'm going to describe it the best way I understand it, and then some of this is also, I'll admit, I've read several reviews, and I was on Twitter for a while, so there. She goes into basically it's string theory. It's a multiverse. It's always Earth, but just different versions of it. And so even though it reflects our real history, it's sort of a different reality, basically. The first one is it looks futuristic. There's like robots and shit. The second one ties into our history. She literally hangs out with Josephine Baker in France, and she's part of her crew. That was my favorite sequence of them all, and I just like the way it was shot. I like the musical numbers. I enjoyed all that. The third one is she's a warrior in Africa, fighting colonizers. There's a bunch of great costuming. The battle was interesting, really cool, like the decapitation at the end. The fourth is with George, and then the fifth is her and George becoming the comic book that their daughter writes.
Her and
Is
Pluto
that how?
Nash.
Fucking Pluto Nash. Um, the whole thing was a journey of basically her figuring out who she is. The whole thing is I am. Say your name. Empowerment. Figuring out what it is she wanted to be. In the end, she makes her choice. It is about family and helping. The ones she loves. It's a lot. It jumps around. It's crazy. It's cryptic. Uh, where what are your guys' thoughts on it? What have I said that you disagree with, or what do you want to focus on? Go.
Well, the opening, the Josephine Baker stuff, her being locked on with the spaceship or whatever the reality is, the White Room, it reminded me a lot of Doctor Who. There's an episode with Matt Smith, Doctor, and Amy, and they were all in that different white rooms. They were all in different areas. That reminded me a lot of that episode for whatever reason. Uh, her figuring out all the things. I enjoyed her little journey with that, and the wrist watch implantment things. Um, I liked the Steven Universe character that came in and was talking to her. I think it's Garnet. It looked a lot like her. I did enjoy all that. I did think that the colonization, the African colonization, with it happening right after her mentioning, I really just want to kill white people, uh, it almost looked like the Southern Civil War people, the outfits and everything. So, not we talked about the string theory and it being multiple realities. I don't know that that was necessarily 100% the colonization of an African nation from somebody else, or if it wasn't like a mix of that with her envisioning, Southern, like Civil War people in America, and her just basically saying, "I want to kill white people." To me, that would be a perfect example of maybe somebody she would have wanted to kill. And then, the whole Pluto Nash scene was really cool. The comic book that she was reading, and then throughout the little end piece there, I liked her journey a lot throughout this. Kind of finding herself and how she got there. I think is going to be very important to the rest of the series.
Yeah, I thought the Josephine Baker thing was very cool too, because usually it was the kind of scene where I initially thought, I was like, okay, this is where we get usually when the kind of scene we get when someone discovers their time travel abilities, and she's accidentally put herself in sort of an embarrassing situation, and she'll quantum leap out of there and wind up somewhere more interesting. But they lingered on it. She stayed there for a while. She was with that
Yeah,
group
I
for
think she stayed there for a while. Yeah, she was digging it.
yeah. And I thought that was very cool. And like you said, we got a lot of good scenes out of that and the way it's shot. And
Watch out. Sorry to interrupt. I just love the way it's shot. I'm always impressed, and that's one thing I love about this show and the production values. Just specifically the Josephine Baker sequences, the amount of actors in those scenes, the choreography, the amount of. I mean, think about the work. This is just one 5-minute segment that's going to be on the show, and I can't imagine how many weeks that probably took for that. So it's always I appreciate HBO always really steps up their game with the production values, and that whole thing was very impressive.
well, yeah, that and I did like her warrior training and everything, and I feel like that's going to come in handy later in the series. Like Atticus isn't going to have to jump in like he did next time. Hippolyta will probably be handling things herself. That whole scene, though, like Spencer said, I feel like historically, yeah, that definitely seemed like even though we're looking at parallel universes and stuff, that's definitely a thing that's rooted in history and a specific historical moment. Because I feel like when the person that trained her said her name, like I should have known that name potentially. Like maybe we were looking at a historical figure and just didn't know it. Something I'm gonna have to look into because I think, well, we all don't know enough of that about that era of history or that particular conflict to actually, recognize as much as we should. Mention it in the comments if you know a little bit more about it, or if your wiki game is strong and you've just looked it up.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely. We love when you guys like the last video. Have you had a chance to read those comments? A lot of people broke down a lot of the stuff from the
I did, yeah.
I read a
Yeah.
few of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some cool stuff in there. Like, but yeah, it's just don't know enough about either the particular tribe and their role in that particular conflict to say whether or not this was a historically a well-known battle that happened.
What y'all think of the George stuff?
Oh yeah. I kind of figured last episode. Well, when we got the preview for this episode, I kind of thought, okay, she's time traveling. We're probably gonna, if she has control over this, we're gonna see George. But we went through so much in this episode. By the time we got here, it completely slipped my mind, and it was a surprise. And I thought back at the moment where she's talking to Josephine Baker and everything, and all the things she's angry about, and she's mentioning all these people she's angry with and everything. She hesitates at one moment, and she says, and she doesn't mention the last one, and it was clear to me that who she meant was George, but she didn't say it because deep down she kind of felt like she shouldn't be angry with George about anything because they had a good life and etc. But deep down, and she was a little bit resentful and didn't want to say it out loud. And then when she has that one-on-one with George, it kind of confirms it. And they have a good back and forth. And despite that resentment, I do love that. Despite that, her feeling like, oh, I could have done this thing, I could have done that. She still loved him enough that she still wanted to be his wife. She still, in the end, she wanted this family that she built, and that was kind of a beautiful thing. And that winds up being the whole reason that she chooses, not to remain a part of this group of time travelers or time transcendent beings that she's joined with, because she wants to go back to Earth for her daughter.
Do you believe that going forward, when she returns, that she'll be changed in a way? She will have. I guess you could use the word ascended. She'll be something more now. I don't know how to word it.
I get what you're saying.
I know what I want to say, but it's so damn nerdy, and I don't want to fucking say it, but I'm going to.
That she'll have knowledge and experiences
in
beyond,
Star Trek.
Yeah. Beyond everybody on Earth. She'll have a greater perspective of things, is what you're saying.
Wesley Crusher ends up joining with this guy that was the Traveler. And he's this being who's like super powerful, and he could travel throughout all time and space and everything. And he basically tells him, he's like, yo, you could be like me and join up. You're really cool and smart. And so Wesley's like, yeah, let's do that. And so he joins him. And then every so often he can come in the books, he'll come back and hang out and be like, hang out with Picard and them. But he's sort of become more than just a human. He's like ascended to this other thing.
How dare you demean Hippolyta in such a way as to compare her to Wesley Crusher of all characters?
Wesley Crusher was not as bad after the initial few seasons.
He's not as bad. He is awful.
Yeah, Wesley Crusher is awful, and I'm a Will Wheaton fan, but
I'm not.
Agree to disagree.
It's like, then we will definitely disagree.
Definitely disagree. Yeah,
I think current Will Wheaton ruined. It made me like his character even less going back and watching.
He was an annoying kid initially, but if you go to the part where he's like trying to
He's
join
an
Star,
annoying person, like period.
you don't like any of his D&D or any his gaming stuff.
No, I actually like the stuff he does, but not him in it. Like I like all the other people who are in it. I don't like him.
I can't believe we turned this into a
I,
discussion about Star Trek.
yeah, that's why I hesitated to go here because I knew exactly what was about to happen, and
Look, we've all got like 3 hours more of opinions about.
We're going to stop talking about Star Trek. I apologize to the audience. Perhaps we'll do Star Trek stuff at some point. Deep
I'm
Space
down.
Nine, the best
No,
Star
not
Trek.
Deep Space Nine. Ugh.
Dude, you're great, dude.
Oh, so we're doing it again.
Was the greatest, one of the greatest captains. He didn't become captain until later in the series, but Avery Brooks is awesome. Also, I got to see him speak one time at a convention. Real cool guy. But anyways, I love Deep Space Nine. Huge fan. There, whatever. Let's go. Back to where y'all making a point about oh yeah, Hippolyta. What's this gonna do to her going forward? We're gonna get so many downvotes now because I fucking had opened my mouth about Star Trek.
Well, yeah, Hippolyta. Where is this going to go for? She'll retain
okay,
that knowledge.
Brian.
She'll retain
Brian,
that knowledge, and that'll be.
passionate about. It's okay. I still love you.
It is. I know. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's. I for the audience, I wake up every morning, and the first thing I see is an autographed picture of Avery Brooks hanging in my room. No lie, no bullshit. And then I have a Patrick Stewart also hanging near my light, autograph picture. So I am a Star Trek fan. There you go.
Yeah, we will have a very, very long discussion. Well, many very long discussions about Star Trek in the future, I'm sure. Likely on this podcast. But Hippolyta, I think she's going to retain that knowledge. I don't think she's going to return and not know the things she knew. How she's going to return, I think, is the question. Because, or if she's just.
Sorry, I've just realized I'm drinking out a Star Trek cup too. Just look down. I was like, oh yeah, there you go. All right,
I can just talk about Star Trek for another 2 hours. I can do that.
I was drinking a bunch of coffee, and so now I'm like wired, and I'm thinking about a million things Star Trek related. All right, that I won't interrupt again. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's cool. But yeah, I think
didn't promise I wouldn't interrupt though. So I'm just gonna bring up one more time. No,
you're gonna talk about Voyager now, right? Are we gonna talk about Voyager?
No.
I was gonna talk about Discovery. So that's not true. I don't know shit about Discovery.
I love Discovery, but I do enjoy Picard. I am interested in the next season of Discovery, but I don't know. I might wait till it's all finished and then go through it. I don't know. It's ripping off a few things from Babylon 5. That's another show I like. That's a whole other conversation. But Hippolyta, she's something greater than human, you think?
Only mentally. Yeah, and not necessarily greater, but more aware of, just kind of the nature of what is and time and space and those sort of things. And
sort of like the Doctor.
Yes.
That was going to be the reference I was going to make. Is the Doctor Who stuff.
We can do that.
It seems very enlightened just because of, we don't know how much time she spent at each one of those places. Like, it's alluded that she became a great warrior. How is she going to be the warrior leader in a very short period of time? That takes time to be able to fight like that. The becoming a dancer, being close with Josephine Baker, who she wasn't at first, and then she became that. That friendship didn't spark overnight. So how long was she there?
Even her whole,
a lot of those things.
Her haircut, everything about her changed. Like she had spent a lot of time there. You're right, learning the dances and becoming part of that social circle.
So, like you said, Larry, her new superpower might just be like an enlightenment just over being able to spend multitudes of times in different time frames, learning different things. Uh, who's to say that what we saw were the only places she visited? We don't know.
I was
Like
just
she
going to
could
say
have,
that. Yeah, those.
she could have went to multiple realities, multiple timelines, multiple things, because it's, it when she comes back to the current timeline that we're observing, or current reality. I shouldn't say timeline. I think it's more reality bouncing than it is timeline bouncing. But when she comes back to her current reality, she's going to have a wealth of knowledge uh, that is going to help them. And like you said, Larry, I don't know that it's necessarily a superpower as far as she's going to be able to like to use telepathy and telekinesis and push people away. I think that it's going to be more of a knowledge base, but I think it's going to be a pretty broad knowledge base now at this point.
Yeah, and we still have a time machine in play. Atticus has the key, but the machine is still there, potentially functional. She may be the only one with the knowledge of how to use that, as far as we know. And this other lodge is seemingly guarding it, so her knowledge may come in handy in the near future.
Well,
What
I
did
think it's cool too that the cops. I don't think that it's been used. Like I think that because they were all surprised, we're like, "What are you doing here?" And they all looked surprised, not only just to see her, but to see everything powered up.
Well, yeah, because I think they also asked how long has this light been on, or something along those lines. So they had know how to use it. They didn't know how to use it. Well, and for one, they didn't have the key, so they couldn't have, even if they did know how to use it. But we see with the end of this episode, though, that they probably know where to obtain the key. Now. They have some vague idea because people keep sloppily dropping comic books everywhere.
yes. Exactly, which sets absolutely that the last shot, which sets up next week's episode, where the lodge has an idea of where to go. What happened to Atticus when he went through the portal? Do you think?
That I'm really interested. I hope that they either show it in its own episode, or give like a 10-minute breakdown or something at the beginning of the next episode. Because when he comes back through, he's holding the book, the Lovecraft Country book, and I don't know what that means necessarily. I don't.
Yeah, that was very
Some
that was
dark
very
tower
meta.
shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very dark tower. We're gonna reference every type of thing today. But it was straight up Dark Tower, like 100, like completely.
Yes.
So much so, I don't know if it was directly a like an homage to it. I wonder.
But here's my thing though. About that scene, I think, and I may be wrong. I'll have to go back and check. I think, and I just pulled the book up to take a look at my copy of Lovecraft Country, and like that his book had a different author. I believe that George was the author of the
And
version
cover
of the book. Yeah.
different. Too. Yeah, yeah. It's just in title. Yeah. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think that's
Right.
what we were saying is that it's multiple realities. I don't think necessarily that it's timelines, but in a different reality,
His
that
uncle wrote
Lovecraft
that book.
Country, yeah, somebody else wrote it, as opposed to its author initially. So I think that this goes back to a reality jumping instead of necessarily timeline jumping. But, that's, string theory. If I altered something 150 years ago, it does create a separate reality, a separate timeline. So I don't know. Them jumping through time may create a different timeline altogether. I don't know. Like it's,
Like
Yeah, yeah. We just don't
but
know
I
how.
think it's a fun
Yeah.
adventure to take as we will over the next couple episodes.
Well, yeah, and it's certainly the sort of thing where, at the very least, if those timelines existed without her or prior to her, uh, Hippolyta's presence definitely altered them significantly.
Do we get a Christina episode? I know she's not part. I mean, she's a main character. She's a major player in this overarching story, in the whole story. There's only 3 episodes left, but that does leave room for for her if they want to do it. Do you think she needs one? She's told us a little bit about her past here and there, but does she need a whole episode focused on her, or do you think it's not necessary?
I think an episode similar to this one would be a good way to do it, because in the previous episode, which I thought that I thought that every episode going forward was going to be similar to this, where even if you have a centrally focused character, you're still going to get little one-offs of everybody else. Episode 6 was not that case. It was this standalone episode about the Korea stuff, about, you know, everything that happened to Atticus there, and it didn't really bounce around at all. It took 100% place there. I do, however, think that a Christina episode similar to something like this, where, a third of the 2/3 of the episode is focused around her, and then we still get other people's stuff, I think would be a perfect way to kind of have her own episode and help explain some of the stuff with her.
Well, I don't know. There's so much history there with her that we don't know. And there's a lot implied with her, like that she was either very sheltered or that she was, locked away in her father's manor because she has very few life experiences and things. And it may
A
be
lot of
interesting
Harry
to,
Potter tie-ins.
yeah, yeah. And like, but it may be interesting to get a standalone with just her from her perspective with some of with maybe, well, I mean, it depends on what type of standalone episode you're getting for her, whether it's a flashback, whether it takes place in current day. If it's flashing back, I may just want that the particular flashback of, you know how she got to the point she's at now and learned magic and that sort of thing, and the conditions under which she was raised and everything. If you're getting all that, you may want that on its own, because it's the sort of thing you may get all that, and you may also get her full plan in that episode. Whatever elaborate thing it is she's got planned, you may figure it out, because I'm pretty sure that there's more to it than just because it's implied that these are alternate dimensions that Hippolyte is going to, that it's not affecting their main timeline at all. So Christina's plan has got to be more complicated than to just alter time, or to just say, well, I want to go to this timeline and change it so that, as a woman, I have more rights. Because otherwise they just go, well, okay, well, then you go do that then. That doesn't affect us. Her conflict wouldn't be with the main characters, if she's really our villain in the first place, because our main villain may just be this other lodge, and the flashback episode may give us more of an idea of that, whether she's a friend or a foe. Like, we know she's manipulating people and that she's manipulative, but again, that possibly has to do with the circumstances of, well, her life in general. She's always had to manipulate people to get the things that she needs.
Yeah, the next episode appears to be I can't remember the character's name, but the one who writes the comics, George and Hippolyta's daughter.
Yeah,
she's prominent in the trailer, so I'm assuming it's going to be sort of her focused episode. But we've basically rammed through just about everybody at this point, so that's why I bring up you have for that one. And I could see, like, episode 9 would be perfect for Christina, sort of the setup, reveal her true plan, and then go into the season finale. That may be what they're going to do. I don't know. Any other thoughts on this episode you want to talk about?
It's Diana, the kid's name.
That's right. Yeah, I knew it was a D. Yeah, because I remember her name written on the
or
comic.
Deanna. I don't.
It's a D name. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Nothing else. I think we pretty much covered it.
It and everything.
Yeah, that and portions of Star Trek, which we will debate long after we're done recording here, I'm sure.
Anything else, Spencer?
No, I think we're good.
Cool. We appreciate you guys listening. Yeah, like I said before, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Hit the thumbs up. We'll see how that turns out in this video. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like Star Trek, go ahead and let us know. Maybe we'll do some content for that at some point.
What's your favorite? How do you feel about Deep Space Nine?
There you go. Yeah. The best Star Trek show. Yeah, we are. It is. So yeah, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.